the Amazing Women Speak podcast, inspiring and motivating every Black woman to own, honor, and execute her amazing, individually and collectively, as it was established at birth.
Good evening, and happy Sunday. I am Crystal L. Gunn, and welcome to another episode of Amazing Women Speak. Thank you so much for joining us today. And so you know the drill. While you're getting in and settled for the show, hit the share button, share Amazing Women Speak so your friends and followers can get in on this conversation. Amazing Women Speak is sponsored by the Amazing Woman Network, which was created to unite and empower Black women globally, focusing on the core pillars of reclaiming and owning our personal power, mind, body, and spirit, reclaiming and owning our financial power, and increasing our social involvement. Visit us on the web at amazingwoman, WOMAN, network.com. And so we've all heard probably too much over the past 5 years. I'm a boss, right? But everybody wants to be a boss until you got to do boss shit. So being the boss isn't just about titles or entrepreneurship. It's about ownership. And whether you're running a business, leading a household, managing your healing, or rebuilding your life, being the boss comes with a cost. So let's talk about it, not just professionally, but also personally. From the outside, leadership can look like freedom and power, but behind the scenes, it often means long nights, self-doubt, tough decisions. So let's just jump right in. Michele, welcome, my friend. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Fantastic and excited to hear about this conversation.
Yeah, I'm always interested when we have, or excited when we have conversations that I get to pull you in because Boss Mode is a space that you have owned for a long time. And so to hear the behind the scenes conversation, I'm definitely looking forward to pulling you in on that conversation. So, listeners, we invite you to buckle up and get ready for another amazing ride. We cannot do that without an amazing guest to share their story. Camille, please come in and introduce yourself.
Hello, good evening. My name is Camille Johnson, and I am the director of Motor City Dance Factory. And we have been in business, a dance and gymnastics studio now for nearly 25 years. We'll be celebrating our 25th year next season. And I am a dance teacher, I am an entrepreneur, and just a child of God who's out here living her best life.
I love it. I
Right.
love it. Welcome to the show. Look forward to hearing more about you and the Motor City Dance Factory and all the ways in which you are bossing up out here in this world. So, Camille, each week I tell our listeners that this is the fastest hour of our day. So we don't have time to do anything in shallow waters. We got to just jump in the deep end because we don't have a lot of time, a lot of category to cover. Sorry, right now, getting an emergency alert. My apologies. Something is going on around here. So having the conversation about being the boss, and like Crystal mentioned in the promo, oftentimes, especially for the last 5 years, right? Like women have walked around, I'm the boss, I'm a boss bitch, I'm a boss, whatever, right? Like all of the things. And we don't talk about what happens behind the scene for women who are bossing up, doing boss things, and creating paths for other folks to be able to be bosses themselves. There is a cost involved. And so, like I said, we don't have a lot of time to spin in shallow waters. Let's launch deep and begin to discover a little bit about your journey because we always like to talk about what's under the covers before we expose the greatness, right? And there's a lot to think about in this boss journey. What was under the covers for you before you recognized this is the move that I need to make?
Well, so my boss, and I always say, don't call me the B word. My, I guess, boss journey started at 13 when I opened a dance studio in my basement for neighborhood students on Friday evenings, and they paid me $3 to take ballet, tap, and jazz every Friday. So their parents got for me for $1 an hour. I had dance recitals and all of the things. So that was where we started. Now, under the covers, saying, okay, what am I going to do with my life? I was a teacher in Detroit Public Schools. I was a dancer for the Pistons. I was doing all of the things. And I kind of stumbled into entrepreneurship just because I love to dance. And it was something that I wanted to do and teach dance. And then it got bigger and bigger. And the first year I opened this studio, I had about 300 students the very first year.
Wow.
And with no business sense at all, I want to
Right.
say. None.
We have to talk about that, right? Like we got to unpack
we'll
that.
talk about that. But under the cover, it was just a love for dance. And it turned into an entrepreneurial journey that I've been on now for 25 years. But that was not, it was just, I just wanted to dance and I wanted to create. And that's how it started.
So, I mean, did you have an entrepreneurial, well, you had the spirit at 13, right? Like, were you exposed to other entrepreneurs? Like at 13, and all I wanted to do was dance. Mm-hmm. Most of us would pursue dance as a solo individual. Yeah. And here you are at 13, creating space for other girls, right? Like to do the same. Like, had you been exposed? What was going on for you?
Yeah, so my mother has, and it's so funny you asked me because I never thought about the correlation, but my mother I was in the basement. She was on the main floor of the house teaching piano lessons. So, and she also was a teacher. My grandmother was a celebrated teacher. There's actually a school of performing arts is named after her in Detroit. So the arts have always been a part of my life. And I guess not even thinking about it as being an entrepreneurial spirit, it was just something you do. You have a talent, you have a gift, you pass it on to whoever is around. And it was, it turned into a journey. But yeah, so my mother was a piano teacher. And so still that spirit of, using your gift and turning it into a business.
I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. So the cost, you've been doing this a really long time.
Yes.
And so the costs have had to ebb and flow over the years.
Yes.
Right. At what point in the journey did you realize whatever the cost was, I had to pay it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. That's a few times. Okay. So I have to go through a timeline for you. So in 2007, 2008, as you all remember, the economy kind of was really difficult in Detroit. And I was in a space that at the time seemed super expensive for me. We were in Youthville, Detroit. It was a wonderful new building, a new program, but the rent was high. And I only had about 75 students because people just couldn't afford this extra expense. And I was kind of out of the way from where I normally was. So I tried to close down the studio. I sat up with my team, with my kids at the time, many of them who are still here as teachers. And I said, okay, guys, after this recital, I'm closing and I'm moving to California. I was still teaching school at that time. I was pretty much, my salary from teaching school was paying all of the bills at the studio as well as my own bills. I was also working at the casino in the evenings. Like I had 3 jobs and 2 kids, and I was just making it on my own. So I moved to California, packed up everything, packed up the kids, got certified to teach in California. The only job I could find was in Chula Vista. I wasn't crazy about the area. It was expensive. I came home for my I think it was our 20th reunion, 20th high school reunion. And one of my parents was like, hey, I have some buildings. You got to come and try again. I found a building on Southfield Road, and the owner of the building was great. He gave me a great price. So I decided to move everybody back to Michigan after that very short stint in California and start over. And I really had closed down. I'd given my townhouse to someone. So I had to go back and move in with some of my students who I let take over my townhouse. And I said, okay, I have to do this. I have to get through this. I have to get through these rough times with however many kids I can. And we started afresh in this building. And 15 months later, the building burned down to the ground.
Oh, wow.
So at that point, I'd already been through a hard part, right? So I was like, okay, well, building burned down. I sat there for like a day and just stared at the wall, prayed about it. My dad was sick at the time. I was juggling a lot. And I said, you know what? I'm going to keep going. So there were buildings in the area, one particular across the street. Somebody had just moved out and we just moved right in. So we were only closed after that fire for a month. We worked around construction worked around us. We kept dancing, and we did a recital that year about New Orleans, and it was called Rebuild, Renew, Revive. And we knew that was going to be the theme before the fire happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was just like, okay, I can't give up. Got to keep going. And then, of course, a few years later, we had COVID. But by then, I had those muscles built that I have a lot of people depending on me now. I have a lot of people counting on me. And not only do I have staff counting on me, I have kids watching. How are you going to handle this?
Right.
You just do.
Right. So that is incredible. If nothing else, right, like you begin to teach us the importance of building that resilience muscle. And so the cost on the business side, and there's a cost on the personal side. The sacrifice for your children to pick up, to move to California, and then pick up and move back to Michigan. Right? Like there's a weighing in of that. And so oftentimes what's happening on the surface, right? Like folks can see success, folks can see your resilience. They don't see what's happening at home. And how do we process the impact of our choices on our children, on our family? Talk to us a little bit about what some of those conversations were like for you. Because one of the messages we'd like to get to our listeners is everything does not have to look a certain way for you to overcome the situation that you're dealing with, right? And everything, like we always have amazing women on our show and they talk about their victory story. They need to hear, for those who are stuck, like, how do you have these conversations? How do you make folks trust in this vision that you have when it feels very uncertain for them? So would love to hear you talk about that part of your journey.
For my children?
Yes.
So I have two boys. And they were kind of thrown into dance life because if you're with me, you're going to dance. So neither one of them dance now. They are both creators in their own space, but they were young. So my oldest son is 25. So he pretty much grew up in the dance studio. I had him, in a carrier from place to place. And then my youngest son is 19. So at the time we were going through all of these changes, they were young. They were very resilient. They were very understanding because it's all they knew. That's all they knew. My youngest was born in the studio. I laugh because he had a September birthday and I don't know that I took any time off, and they understood that. My mother is in California, so they were fine. You just saw it as a trip to grandmother's house, and then, okay, now we're going back. So actually, now that they have grown up and gone on to other things, I've had conversations with them like, hey, I'm sorry. You may have wanted to do other things in life, but you ended up with me. And my oldest is really good about affirming that, no, you were a great mom. He actually moved out to Arizona, to Phoenix over a year ago to coach gymnastics. And these are things that I know, and the skills that he has, it's become because of what he's done with me. But we've had conversations about it. Like I felt like my, having to be at the studio and them having to be at the studio with me, because of course we're evening and weekend business. They pretty much had to be at the studio all the time. And I feel like they sacrificed a lot for me to be in this space, but they both have gone on to say how much they appreciate it. Now with my younger son, I was at a point when he was in high school where I was able to go to his games and I was able to go to his events and activities because I had more support and staff at the studio. But with my younger son, it was the studio. And that was my other baby. But he's a great guy, and he understands the sacrifice. And they shared me well. In my very first program book, there's a program ad for him, and I said, "Thank you for sharing me with the studio."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So, Crystal, again, I'm always excited when the listeners get a chance to learn a little bit more about you. and they see the work that you do. A lot of them get to experience the benefit of the work that you do. But there was a journey for you as well, right? Like there were costs along the way for you as well to land and recognize that this was, in hindsight, recognize, right? Like it was the cost that I had to pay, and going through it. Going through it, right? Like not yet recognizing that this is the thing that I'm called to do, that I have to do. Talk to us about Nile and how she experienced that part of your journey. Because anybody that meets you now and knows Crystal today, knows Crystal for the last 5 years, sees gets to experience a very different Crystal than 10, 15 years ago, while you were bringing Nile through this journey, leaving corporate America and recognizing, again, this is the path that you have been called to take. And it requires adjustments that sometimes children don't understand or don't want mom or dad to do. Talk to us a little bit. Let the learners learn a little bit more about Crystal.
So I remember, we're in season 5 now of the podcast. Season 1, I think, when we had our daughters on here, right?
Yes.
And she said and was very adamant she doesn't want to be an entrepreneur. That's the journey.
Remember that?
Yeah.
I remember that.
That's the journey.
Wow.
The sacrifice, it's hard, right? You see the outside picture, but the sacrifices that you go through. I didn't know you were going to ask me these questions.
Nah.
It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, her dad and I, although divorced, we had a great relationship, but he's also an entrepreneur, like that entrepreneur spirit. And she was very adamant, like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to make those sacrifices. Now, she never missed a beat in life because we had an incredible support system, but the long nights, the thinking you're not doing all of the things.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. Thinking that you're letting your kid down.
Right.
Having that guilt. Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I'm trying to do all of this and have all of this impact on the world, but am I missing the impact on my kid?
Yeah. And there's not a perfect time to become an entrepreneur, right? Like you got to dive in and go hard, be 10 toes down 24/7, because you have to shift as the things are shifting around you. And so there's no planning for how inconsistent the early days can be. And so when folks get excited about entrepreneurship, which I believe folks should, right? But knowing the pieces that come with it, understanding the challenges that come with it. Like if we could have more of these conversations, right? Like it would benefit us beyond just the piece. And Camille, you mentioned it, right? Like I got into this and had no clue about the business aspect of it, right? Like that's teachable. But what's happening in the personal for your unique situation is so different, and there's not a book on it.
Oh, Lord.
And so figuring out the path forward when the late nights are required, how did you begin to overcome that?
Well, for some reason I lost my camera, so I don't know what just happened.
Did you want to come out and come back in?
I will, because.
All right, so Crystal, while she's doing that, I'll invite you into that.
Say it again. Ask the question again.
Yeah, so thinking about it's easier to figure out the business piece of it, right? Because there's somebody who's going to teach you how to do the numbers, take care of the books, Right. But women don't talk about the other part of that and how to set yourself up for the best success, for the sacrifice, not even just to your children, but to your friends and to the other things you have of interest. How did you figure that piece of it out? Or how are you still figuring that
I
piece
was
of
gonna
it
say
out?
I haven't figured that out.
Right.
I haven't figured that out. And you and my child know that better than anyone, right? Because I often say you get, I don't know, the short end of the best friend stick because I'm at home building and doing the things as opposed to us going out to the theater and to dinner and to whatever because I'm here doing this thing. So I still have not figured it out. However, and I can't even call it a balance. I think when you have people around you that understand that it isn't something that I want to do, it's something that I have to do, that it becomes easier because then you get it and you're like, okay, no, she's not just playing me off.
Right.
She's over there trying to do this thing that she's been called to do to leave this legacy to inspire these people. It becomes easier. And to be able to have those conversations with my daughter and to see that although she said she doesn't want to be an entrepreneur, she still has that entrepreneur spirit, but she gets it and she gets the why. It makes it easier, but I haven't figured out the balance. I haven't figured out how to do the thing yet. And I don't think somebody can write a book on that because it's gonna be different for everybody.
Yeah. It
Hmm.
it is. And you're in a unique situation. My boys at least had each other.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they were, it's half the time they were fighting, but they had each other. It's what's interesting that you brought up. Both of my boys do have an entrepreneurial spirit, and it drives me crazy because I'm like,
Hmm.
what you like? One, he has turned, when my older son moved out, my younger son turned his room into an office. And he has a heat press machine, a sewing machine. It's all night. I hear beep, 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 all kinds of things. Or he's in Europe doing something. But that's how they are. And even with my older son working in Phoenix, he still is trying to do his own thing too. But late nights, my studio has 2 couches. We everybody has to be here. The dogs, anybody who is a part of my life, my boyfriend, everybody is here. But like you said, they understand that this is what you have to do, and almost to a point where you're lost not doing it. And not that it is my identity, but it's a strong part of my identity.
Wow.
It is who I am to so many people.
Could you you can't imagine doing something different?
I lose my mind in the summertime when we have time off because I'm like, what do I do? I love working. I love what I do.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so great. It's because I love it. And I don't feel like trust me, it's a lot of work, but I enjoy it and I don't mind it. And I have a lot of people, like you were talking about, empowering other people. I have an assistant director who I give her autonomy to do whatever she wants to do because she's so good at what she does. The teachers, some of them grew up as students, and just giving other people power to do what they want to do and be their own bosses in their own little world, because I don't like the boss word. I'm a facilitator. I'm a director. I make your dreams come true. I'm not, I don't see myself in that light. I'm not a dictator. Even tough conversations I've learned to have, but that was hard for me for a while. Like if somebody's coming in late, I'm like, hey, we got to talk, But this is the thing. I have standards, though. I have standards, but I'm blessed enough that people understand me and they understand my standards. So I don't have to walk around like I'm the boss. You have to do what I say. It's the idea of what you're supposed to do if you're around long enough.
So it's really interesting, right? Like for somebody who sits on the other side of this, right? Like I'm surrounded by a lot of folks who are in the space that Crystal and Camille share. And to be on the other end of that, right? Like there is a journey for the folks that are in your village, that are in your tribe, to really understand that when it is a part of the way that you breathe, right? Like you have to build different kind of relationships, because those folks, us on the other side, we pay a part of that cost, right? Like for the things that you're doing. and certainly want to see you succeed and, right? Like I don't believe in but. I want to see you succeed and, right? Like I'm vested in this thing too. And when we don't get to dot, 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 right? Like there's a cost for us that we have to pay. We see your passion and your desire and want you to win. And so we aren't even having those conversations, right? Like I'm be super transparent here for a moment because our listeners have been on this ride with us for 5 years and it has been challenging because sometimes I just need my girlfriend to come over and do the things, right? And that grind season. And we because I don't know, is there an assumption? I'm just going to ask it this way to the both of you. Is there an assumption? Because I did not get it until it was said to me. Right? Like when people say, oh, no, that's my girl. She understands. Oh, no, those are my children. They get it. They understand that this is who I am. But what happens when we don't? What have been the cost of some of those relationships outside of our children, right? Our village, whatever that looks like. Right? Camille, your story is really unique because the folks that you have nurtured are now working alongside with you, which is a beautiful path. You get to create a different kind of village. But for those of us on the outside, again, we want to see you win.
Oh, I guess I'll take this one. And I say it jokingly, but it's really what happens. I have two really, really my best friends. And then I have another girlfriend who's a really good friend. I have friends. They all become a part of the studio. I promise you. And I have done things to get out of the studio, to do things out of the studio, i.e. Serving in the community where I'm a blessing. I pick up a boyfriend there and he's here all the time. Sometimes more than me. Like, Miss Camille, we were looking for you. I'm like, but I get it. I don't go. I understand. But when I tell you my friends, when they want to see me, they come sit right over here on this couch and we'll kick. I have one girlfriend. She shows up every Monday and she comes here because her daughter takes dance. She brings her daughter to dance class. I have another friend. We've been friends since high school. This one's been friends since we were 8. Another friend from high school. She has adopted 2 grandbabies and they come here for class and I see her 4 times a week now. My best friend is my accountant. I'll be seeing her soon. Yeah, and we talk. We'll have our chat first about life, and then we're like, okay, now down to business. And sometimes the chat about life, I'm like, okay, girl, I got things to do. But like my brother, for example. Now, seriously though, there are people who do. My brother lives in California. My mother lives in California. I don't see them as frequently as I would like because I am always working. My mom usually will come to town for the recital. I do my best to see my cousins when I can. But there are a lot of things, especially in the early years when I really didn't have the money to travel or do things or see people. I missed weddings. I missed baby showers. I missed out because most of my family is out of town. So I did miss those things and it was always working. It was working and I didn't have money because I was trying to pay for the business to run. Yeah. And there was a lot of sacrifice for sure.
It is difficult because Michele hosts a show with me. Like that's part of the thing. Right? See? And so anything else that I'm doing, I'm always pulling her into it to do it. And she's always there. But again, she still misses okay. So I have to be intentional and we have to schedule dates in order to be able to, at least once a month, I get to see her outside of all of the other things that we both do on both ends, but definitely outside of this entrepreneurship journey that I'm on. I even have to make dates with my daughter. Now she lives in a whole nother state, so it's a little different. But even when she was still here, it was trying to be intentional to spend the time with when it's not an event that's related to this.
Yeah.
Because it is, I think, kind of unfair, if that's a good word to use.
So, right, like in the chat, Sheila is totally able to relate, Crystal, to the emotion of this conversation because she feels a ton of guilt, right? Like she missed a lot. And Sheila absolutely remember those days, chasing whatever the thing you were chasing, missing activities for your children, right? How do you deal with the guilt?
That's a great question. I think for
Because
me,
it's not about I'm sorry, right? Like it's absolutely not that. You're doing the thing, like you said, right? Like you are living your purpose. You've been called to this space, both of you. It's very clear, right? Like you don't start something at 13 without understanding that it is in your DNA of sorts to walk this path, right? So it's not I'm sorry, because you're not out to intentionally exclude, ignore, not be present, right? Like, so it's not that piece of it. But what we've been conditioned to feel, somebody feels wrong, I want to be sorry. But this is deeper than that, right? Because you're building legacy type of stuff here. And yet, again, those on the other side, the daughter who is doing the cheer, just looking for her mom in the stands and mom's not there. How as individuals, right? Like as entrepreneurs, right? Like for me, 9 to 5 entrepreneur on the side, I lost those early years with my daughters, chasing titles, right?
Okay.
Now, like the 9 to 5, I've learned like I can shut that off, right? I'm real specific about the hours in which I do personal training. Like I can shut those things off. And when Camille, a community is relying on you, Krista, when amazing women are relying on you to help them understand, how do you deal with the guilt that comes with the other stuff of being a boss?
Yeah, Camille, how do we deal with that?
I make jambalaya at 11 o'clock at night. Because sometimes, and like I said, my kids are older now, but I still have one at home, and I leave at 8 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I come home at 10:30 at night, and that's my day.
Right.
And I'll come in, he'll come downstairs. So I had pancakes today. I said, "Oh, you want me to make you some jambalaya?" And he was like, "Thank you so much." And I just feel like even just that alone, just showing that like little piece of, I'm here for you. I love you. I want to give you this. But it's hard. And I think just being there for people when you can and making yourself available to them. I had 2 young ladies come to me yesterday. I'm in the middle of costume distribution for 400 kids. And I had 2 girls. They were like, we need to talk to you because we're having some things going on with us and we need somebody to mediate this discussion. So I stopped everything just to be present for them. And sometimes just taking the time to be present for those who you love is important, because sometimes people just want a minute.
Right.
They don't want a lot of you. They just want a minute.
Right.
They want you to acknowledge them. They want you to love on them a little bit. So just doing that, like in my drives, that's when I can call people. Just say, hey, how you feeling? Just thinking about you. I'm just trying to do things like that, but just understanding it, especially, and I'm sure, Crystal, you all understand this too, just you have a time frame that things have to be done. So I have to get this done, but I have to make time for you too. And just trying to fit it all in. I have this right now because I'm going to read at a school tomorrow. People are like, why are you doing that? You don't have time. I'm like, I'm going to make time because I want to pour into somebody. If somebody asks me, as much as people support me, somebody asks me to come do something, if I can get it in my day, I'm going to do it. And I think that goes for our friends, people on the street, taking that time to self-care. All of it is important.
And that's exactly where I wanted to go with that thing next. And you just mentioned it. It's also finding the time to take care of yourself.
Right.
It's difficult.
Right.
Like, okay, well, I really should be working out right now, but I'm going to do one more hour of
Mhm.
this thing, or, so it's an incredible balancing act again. And I don't think somebody can write a book and tell you how to do it for you, because we're figuring it out every single day as we go along with that piece of it.
So the part of it that somebody can write a book about, right? Like the many hats that you wear that you didn't even recognize you would have to wear, right? You become a therapist, right? Early on, you had to be an accountant. You have to be all of these things that you did not know at the time was going to be in your job description when you just wanted to own this thing and grow it and love it, all of those things, right?
Yeah.
The topple of the hats, the prioritization of the hats, the balance of the hats. How do you begin to figure that out? And you recognize I need to trust. I got to pull in some folks that I trust because I can't wear all of the hats
You
in
cannot.
order to be able to be present for the things that really do need your attention.
Absolutely.
How did you make that bridge to give up a piece of Motor City Dance to your vice president or your co-executive director? I'm not sure of the title. How did you begin to trust that I had to let a piece of this go in order for it to grow?
Well, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and dance is totally different than it was then. It's no jazz hands like back in the day. And it's different. It's different. And I think a lot of people, not just dance studios, but business in general, become stagnant because they're not willing to let the next generation do what the next generation does.
Mm.
And I have found that our team, our studio has grown because I'm not trying to control everything. Because if I were trying to control everything the way, and dance is one of those things you learned it from how your teacher did it. So my teacher that was my main teacher growing up, she started her studio in the 60s. When she started her studio, there was a I don't want to name the name of the studio, but there was a group just for people of color.
Mm-hmm.
They were called the Ebony Dance Company. I'll call it that. But it was a predominantly white studio. But as I've grown, I can only take my studio so far by myself. So knowing that I don't want to be the competition team director. I don't really like competition. I like dance for art and creative. But there are people who have competitive spirits and have the know-how and the ability to choreograph outstanding numbers that go places. They go to these major competitions and win the first overall, awards. And those are the people I want in those seats. I have a gymnastics team that's currently competing at the state championship today. I can do a cartwheel. I know I can't do everything, and I don't want to do everything. And once you get your pride and ego out of the way as a business owner, and that's when you stop calling yourself a boss babe and all that stuff. Once you get all that out of the way, you realize I'm a step back. I don't even need to be seen on the camera. My name doesn't even need to be spoken because I want this business to grow. Whether it's through Zandria, who is my assistant director, through Tyra, who grew up in the studio, who works wonderfully with the children, through my gymnastics coaches. I want Motor City Dance Factory to be what people talk about, not Camille. Mm-hmm. I'm just a servant of the place. I'm a plumber sometimes.
Right.
I'm plunging the toilets, So just knowing that there are people who have value and worth and trusting them, like you said, trusting them with that.
Yeah, which is huge, right? Like, because it is your baby. And the first time you allow somebody to babysit your baby, there's a lot of anxiety. Why right? Like you need to stretch yourself in that way.
So there's this really great book called The Managing Company. And it's a really great read. I think every entrepreneur should read it, but it talks about this very thing. And it's you can't wear all of the hats if you want your thing to grow. So you have to find the people that are really, really great at those things and allow them to be great at those things, because 9 times out of 10, you're not great at that anyway. Mm-hmm. You had to do it.
Right.
You're not great at it. And that's what they love and where they thrive. So let them do that so that you can do the things that you love about it. and the things where you thrive. And I think when you figure that balance out, that's where the magic is.
So minus the title, right? Like I believe it is really important for folks to understand both sides of whatever the conversation that we're having. And it's real easy to come on a show and talk about all of the great thing that you're doing. And folks are like, yes, sign me up for that. And then it's like, oh my God, nobody ever told me that I would have to do dot, 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 dot. And so what I really love about this show is that we talk about the nobody told me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we begin to wind down of celebrating the thing, whatever the conversation is. So there are joys in, minus the title, doing your life's work, doing the thing that you feel most passionate about. Camille, what brings you the most joy because of the seat that you sit in?
Oh, seeing the adults that have come through my program be flourishing, wonderful adults who have relationships with each other, going on girl trips with each other, being friends long after the studio, dancing for Beyonce, dancing for Shakira, doing these amazing things just because this exists. That brings me the most joy. Girls coming home from college to visit, or now lately, people coming into the studio with their kids and saying, hey, I think I used to go here when I was little. You're my grand student. That's what brings me the joy. Just knowing that my purpose is giving purpose to someone else.
Crystal?
To see women heal, right? Be it on the personal side or the financial side, but seeing that impact and them elevating to that next level. And someone said, Crystal, you need to take the time to sit to recognize the impact that you've had. And I just keep going on to the next thing. But when I sit down and I look at someone and I'm like, okay, yeah, now they get it. Now they have a great financial system of success. Now they are doing their thing entrepreneurially because of, Amazing Woman Entrepreneur inside of the Amazing Woman Network. It's that. It's not about, it's never about how much money did I make. It's never about, all of these millions of people need to be impacted, but to see that someone who was in my space, however they were in my space, became better because of it, elevated to their next level that they wanted to get to, not where I think they should go, but where they wanted to go. Yeah, every day, all day. That's the thing. That's the joy. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm a witness.
So many witnesses. So many witnesses. So how do you practice self-care? It's important. It should be just as important as some of the other things that we consider to be the priority. As Black women, we've been socialized to go, 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 do, do, do. And somebody forgot to tell us that self-care is liberation.
Come on.
We don't do it enough. We feel like we haven't earned it yet, as if we're supposed to, right? Like rest is liberation. What do you do for self-care?
So, I didn't have my first massage until about maybe 6 years ago because I didn't think I could sit still that long. Now,
that is a thing.
At least once a month. I'm like, what am I going to do for an hour or something? And then when I did, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been missing this my whole life. Still haven't had a facial, but I'm working on that. So my self-care, this is my self-care. And I'm very serious about doing this first thing in the morning. So first thing I do, I have a room. I go and pray. I journal in the morning to start my day. I go to the gym as much as I can first thing in the morning. I don't want to do anything. So it's like prayer, go to the gym before my day starts. I mean, I have the luxury of having a job that I can be at later in the day. I work late. So when I go to the gym, I can go at 9, 10 in the morning and be done and start my day after that. So that's a blessing, and I'm aware of that. But even when I was younger, and I don't know where I got this from, in my 20s, I remember I used to work at DSA. I used to go to Powerhouse Gym over in Highland Park at like 5:30 in the morning. And I don't even know where that came from, because that was just something that wasn't a part of my mom's lifestyle. So why I did that, I do not know, but it's always been something in me. I enjoy working out. So I actually do at least 5 days a week. And before I had knee surgery in November, I was doing classes. I'm back in yoga. So that's a part of what I need. And when I wasn't working out, I could feel it in my mood. It drove me crazy. So prayer, journaling, and working out is how I start my days. And then
Michele loves to hear that.
ah!
That workout part, she loves to do it.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I really do.
It is it's the gift, right? Like that allows us to do the things later in life. It adds years to our life, and it feels like a punishment to many. And when you're 75 and able to do all of the things on your own, you will be grateful to that gift that you gave yourself. Crystal, promises kept.
Absolutely.
Tell us about how you got there and why you finally, with consistency, kept the promise.
So someone kept asking me or inviting me to go down to Bloom Transformation. And it was like, oh, I don't have time. Da, 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 da. And like literally I was on level, I don't know, 15 one day. And I said, you know what? I'm going. And I went and I left on a level 3. And it was the most amazing thing ever. And I said, okay, I have to do this thing. And I used to do this thing, and I still do it, called No People Day, where I literally just cannot have conversations with people. It's Sunday. So the only thing I do outside of going down to Bloom Transformation for sound healing is this podcast. And in between that, I'm not answering the phone. It's literally people day, and it's my day to recharge. But understanding that in order to be able to do the work that I do, I have to take care of me first. And Dr. Harris, who actually chimed in earlier in the show, is like, and I just saw his post today because Self-Care Sunday is his thing, and he's in like year 9 of every Sunday just doing for him. And it's an amazing thing. And Michele, you'll be happy to know that I am 1 year and a month into. Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Wow.
1 year and a
Wow.
month into going down to Bloom Transformation. But it has helped with just keeping me even keel throughout the week. It has helped me to be able to pour more into others, but also take just really good care of me. And so being really intentional about that. And I'm not working out 5 days a week like some people on this call, you and my best friend both. I'm not doing that. But just trying to do that. The other piece of it, and why it isn't just so that I can be better for others. It's also that thing that I can be better for me. And as Michele, you mentioned it, as we start to age, right? As we age, because we are aging, that I'm strong enough for as long as I am here in this life to not have to have and be at somebody else's mercy. You know what I mean? To be able to move me from place to place to do that sort of thing. That's really, really important to me. So that self-care plays a part in that as well. But yeah, 1 year and 1 month, man.
Wow. Okay.
Which also shows that
Beautiful.
it's right.
Beautiful. So, in whatever area, we have a listener that's out there who is interested in entrepreneurship. I'm going to go broader than that, right? Like to be a boss over your life, whatever that thing is, right? Like it doesn't have to be an entrepreneur. What one high, one low one challenge, one opportunity should somebody pay attention to, somebody celebrate as they're thinking about what are the ways that I should own my thing? Again, my life, my
Health.
employment situation.
Yeah.
One opportunity, one lesson learned, both sides of that coin. What would you offer?
Mm. The reward that's on the other side is you don't even know how good it is until you get over there.
Mm.
That reward is worth everything that you go through, the ups, the downs, the hard works, the not being able to see the people that you love the most, the long nights, the not enough money, all of that, um, changing what you eat, going to the gym 5 days out the week, having another people day, right? All of the work that you put into it, the other side of that is a freedom and I don't know, it's a freedom, well, apparently that's unexplainable.
Yeah.
It,
And
it's powerful.
yeah, and you're not there. You never really arrive. You're always on a
Mm.
journey. You're always
Mm.
on a journey. Somebody just told me, because when you get to a certain age, you like start to say, "Oh, I'm getting older," and I say it all the time. And somebody's like, "You have to stop saying that." I mean, you as far as you know, you're just halfway there.
Right.
You
So
don't know.
you have to understand that it's a journey, and you don't know what's in your future. This could be just the beginning.
Right.
And we are so quick to look at, oh, I've arrived, or I think I've hit the pinnacle, and you haven't. You still have a place to go, and you will have valleys, and you'll come up out of them. And the
Absolutely.
valleys are hard. The valleys are so hard. And I always say this, I have this thing, I guess I don't hold on to the hard times and the bad times enough. Sometimes I look at stuff, oh, I forgot that happened.
Mhm.
And I
Mm.
think that's what God uses to protect me from my own mind and fear and anxiety that could exist, because I kind of like block those bad things. And there's been some bad moments over the years, but you just keep moving, and you keep moving. And next thing you know, you're up, 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 up again. And then it may drop again, because
Right.
COVID was the worst. And it's like, God, we got through that. And I look back at, you have pictures on your phone and things show up and everybody's in masks doing this, but dance class with 30 kids. And it was horrible. And I had a rent payment of $20,000 a month with no money coming in for months, because we
Right.
couldn't.
There's
Right.
levels to it for sure, and each level is
But not giving up through those.
correct.
Yeah. And that really is the biggest takeaway, to discover that you deserve to love yourself enough to learn to be the boss, the owner, the executive of your situation. Love yourself enough to discover that in this journey. I remember many years ago, on a trip up north for work, and learning to love what I was discovering in the outdoors. And folks that know me know, if it's not a beach, I'm not interested in outdoor life. But up north in Michigan will teach you about God's beauty.
Hmm.
And so I'm coming back, and there's this place called the Dunes, and everybody said you have to see the dunes. Mind you, I was not packed to be on anybody's trail. I had on a very expensive pair of shoes, but I was curious. And he was like, just walk this trail and you'll be able to see the dunes. It will be worth it. And so I'm walking, and the thicket starts to get thick. And I'm concerned about my shoes. And I'm like, there's no way. They have sent us in the wrong direction. This is not going to take me to see these beautiful dunes. Like, each step, I was more convinced, because it was getting thicker, right? Like the weeds were getting taller. And I just kept thinking, I'm ruining my shoes. And I was getting ready to turn around, and I saw a sign, and it said that the dunes were another 400 feet. And I'm like, no way. And so, because I'm paying attention to my shoes, I'm walking with my head down. And as I continue to walk, I discovered sand.
Mm.
Wow.
The thicket was starting to turn into sand, and more sand. And before I knew it, I looked up and saw the most beautiful
Wow.
dunes that I had ever seen in my life. Had I stopped in the thick of it,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have never discovered the beauty of what God could do if I just kept going, just kept going.
Yes, yes.
So the takeaway tonight is to love yourself, to know that you deserve to be the owner, the boss, whatever title you want to put on that, of your life, of your business, whatever that thing is, and that it is a journey. And just take one more step. Just take one more step. Camille, Crystal, I thank you both for sharing this part of you with us. There is a cost to being a boss. You both have talked about paying it and receiving the reward.
Yes.
And speaking of rewards, Camille, you've got an event coming in May that we want to talk about before we begin to wrap this show up.
Yes, we have our big dance production. We have 8 shows total with gymnastics, competition team, and dance. And we finish everything with our dance performance at the Ford Center for Performing Arts in Dearborn, May 17th and 18th. It's called To Infinity and Beyond, A Journey Through Outer Space. And all of our students from 3 all the way through our adults and my friends will be dancing in that show. Our website is motorcitydancefactory.com, and we'd love to have anyone out. And we've just gotten really big in hustle. So if you want to hustle, come on over and hustle with us.
I love it. Thank you. Crystal.
Thank you, Camille, for the transparency. Um, I've I've seen the things over the years, and I just always applaud what you do with Motor City Dance Factory, how it's grown, just the blessings that have come your way with space and students and all of the things, and it is phenomenal to watch. And thank you for continuing to pour into all of the people that you do, the children that have started with you and that are still with you. They'll never forget it. They will never, ever forget it. You are leaving a legacy that at 13, I don't know if that's what you thought was going to happen, but it's definitely what's happening. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. Michele, thank you for making me cry.
Release.
But thank you for being the best friend who understands. Yeah, she's probably not going to come out all of the time,
Mhm.
but I definitely look forward to the time that we spend together. So I'm sorry that we don't get to spend as much time together as we both would actually like, but I'm going to continue to pull you into all of the other stuff that I'm doing too. It's you coming to the studio, right?
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, thank you both for what you do. And Michele, thank you for being the boss that you are in the space that you hold, because you always make room and hold space for other Black women to have their seat at the table. And that is what we're supposed to do. If you want to talk about being a boss, that really is one of the things that we are supposed to do. So thank you both for that. I am Crystal L. Gunn. I am a Black woman. Absolutely own my amazing.
Thank you. Tonight it seems most appropriate in this conversation, Crystal, to thank you for being obedient to the call that God put on your life to create a platform such as this, that we get to come together and share stories and learn and grow and change the narrative that Black women can't come together and celebrate and uplift one another. Your obedience is changing lives for women who have never physically been in a room with you. And for that, I am grateful to be able to know you and call you my best friend. Camille, your story is amazing. You have taught us of what longevity can look like and a commitment to a gift that you didn't even know You have been called to, but it was your desire to do a thing that has blessed generations. Thank you for making space for our little Black girls to just dance it out. This has been an amazing conversation. The cost of being the boss. If you all are selling tickets, I'm buying them because you have taught us that it is a journey that is hard and definitely worth it. Thank you both. It is always a pleasure to be able to facilitate conversations like this. Tonight, you both made it easy because you just shared a piece of who you were with our listeners. And to our listeners, thank you for taking tonight's ride with us. Hearing your comments, reading your comments makes this conversation real. And so we thank you one more time for riding with us. My name is Michele Harper. I am a Black woman, and always without apology, I own my amazing. Camille.
My name is Camille Johnson. I am a Black woman, and I own my amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. This has been awesome. Thank you to our listeners and the comments have really been off the chain today. Thank you. I hope we did a little more of what we are supposed to do, which is to bring you conversations to uplift and inspire you to own, honor, and execute your amazing individually and collectively as it was established at birth. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time.